Unlike Ezra Pound, who translated the material and the voices coming from the past, T.S. Eliot preferred quotations. On one hand, Ezra Pound wanted to make it all new, and we do know what this means, translated a phrase even from the ancient past, even from a faraway land, take a phrase from ancient Chinese. It can be perceived as alive, as modern, as contemporary if it is translated into modern terms, if it is reshaped into modern terms. T.S. Eliot did not want to do that. He wanted to keep the voices from the past the way they were, at the cost of making them not intelligible, even though it was very hard for the reader to have to deal with quotations from an ancient past, Greek, Latin, or in German, Italian, French. As you go through T.S. Eliot's masterpiece, The Wasteland, you find ancient and modern languages, quotations from ancient and modern languages. And what does Eliot do? He adds footnotes to his poem. He wrote The Wasteland. Actually, Ezra Pound edited it. Pound believed in the poetics of compression, so he cut the wasteland and he cut it to half of the original version. So Eliot quotes from the past and leaves everything the way it is. He reports creating an effect of a heap of stuff, a heap of material. He says a heap of broken images, a heap of voices from everywhere and every time. Reading The Wasteland, you will hear voices from ancient and modern languages, German, Italian, Latin, Greek, faraway religions. Think of the fact that the final line of the poem is Shanti, 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 which means peace, repeated 3 times, which is a clear reference to the Hindi religion. Eliot wanted to represent the spiritual sterility and, of course, absurdity of modern world through a constant comparison with classical voices. This is what he defined as the mythical method. So, an ancient, ordered, meaningful past constantly confronting a sterile, meaningless, absurd present. This is the mythical method. And T.S. Eliot said that it's the only way we have to give the only way we can interpret, understand modern reality, the wasteland that is modern reality, constantly confronting, comparing it to a mythical past. The wasteland represents the fragmentation of Western civilization. It is set in post-war Europe. We are in the 20th century, a century which witnessed totalitarian regimes, world wars, atomic bombs, holocausts. And it's the century when a huge generational clash occurred. A century when fathers and sons, the 2 generations, came to a clash, a final, fatal clash. On the one hand, we have the former generation, the fathers or the grandfathers, who were guilty of causing imperialism, World War I, and all the aftermath of war. Millions of soldiers died because of a conflict based on imperialism, exploitation, capitalism. Those soldiers, those young men who went to fight for their country could not even understand the reasons why they were killing and being killed. If Romans used to say dulce et decorum est pro patria mori, that is, it's sweet, it's honorable to die for your country, Ezra Pound said, some died pro patria, non dulce, non et decor. There died a myriad, and of the best among them, for an old bitch gone in the teeth, for a botched civilization. This is what Pound responded to those who kept on saying that mori pro patria, dulce et decorum est. And he also said, in all times, wars were made to make slaves. Now wars are made to make debts. So this is the modern interpretation of dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. Going back to The Wasteland, it expresses the psychological effects of war on humanity. Eliot's poem is a heap of broken images. It represents a world that has imploded. It has radically been destroyed and made sterile, because sterility is another key word of this poem, sterility, the inability of getting some kind of rebirth, sterility. But the whole age of modernism suffered from this kind of eclipse of truth, eclipse of absolute values, eclipse of God, of sense, of those absolute values which had characterized the previous century, I would say which had characterized the whole history of mankind. There had always been some God, some absolute value to, in a way, give a horizon, to give a horizon of sense. Now man has lost this horizon. And this should make you think of Friedrich Nietzsche and the way he described his nihilism. That is, we don't know why we are here, and we do not know what we are here for. So there's not a cause and there's not an end. This is the core of Nietzsche's nihilism. On the other hand, Albert Einstein and his theory of relativity had destroyed, shattered the real basics of physics, of classical physics. Sigmund Freud, his psychoanalysis showed that man is not in full control of his own self. According to Freud, I'm not even the owner of myself, because my free will is constantly influenced by the subconscious, by the drives, the inner drives. Remember not to say instincts, drives, not instincts. Triebe in German. That reason cannot control. Reason cannot control these drives. Charles Darwin had destroyed the basics of Christian religion. And World War I had caused this generational clash between the old generation, which was guilty of horrors like as we said when we dealt with the Heart of Darkness. Remember, Kurtz said the horror, probably referring to imperialism, and the young generation who were forced to fight a war that they did not understand. Europe was in decline. Western world was in decline, and T.S. Eliot wanted to show it. In fact, what is left is, quote, an immense panorama of futility. Absolute truths and certainties are shattered. Man's place in the universe, even those Victorian values, respectability, marriage, family roles, everything destroyed, shattered. The power of reason to control the human mind. Even from a political point of view, what is left of those huge empires? Think of the Austrian Empire. It was fragmented and shattered. And the new scientific discoveries, quantum mechanics, Minkowski, the space-time theory of Minkowski, new concepts of space and time as perceived as relative and not absolute. Think of Henri Bergson, the distinction between psychological time and psychological subjective time and objective time. What is the effect, the impact of all this upon literature? There are no time rules. Past and present coexist. We start observing constant flashbacks and flash forwards. And there are not even any logical rules in writing. In a word, the so-called narrative method based on logical and chronological order has imploded, and we now have to use, T.S. Eliot says, the mythical method. The narrative method is no longer effective to give shape to the immense panorama of futility that is modern reality, this wasteland. We now have to use the mythical method, which is based on a constant parallel between what used to be unordered, meaningful past, and what is left now, that is a wasteland with no purpose, with no end, with no certain causes before the present, and no definite ends, goals in front of us. This is a real wasteland.